Oh, look at these labels. I'm just gonna copy them. Oh, yes. I can definitely double the price of that violin. So now I just gotta cut it out, and then I'm going to dip it in tea. I'm gonna use tea, and I'm gonna burn the edges. It's gonna look like the real thing. The real thing. And I'm gonna get thousands of dollars. I know some unsuspecting violinist is gonna fall for it for sure. I don't quite know what this violin is, but it has a Valentina's label, so it must be a good violin. It's only $15,000, so would you like to buy it? It's a good violin.
Hey guys, welcome to another episode of Ask Olaf the Violinmaker. Today I am going to talk about fake labels. This is so prevalent in our industry, and it's just so important to address. I get so many people coming in and telling me about an instrument, and they'll name it something, and then I check the instrument and it turns out that it's actually a fake label. So here's a little example. I'm just working on this instrument here, and it's got a Storioni label. Storioni was a violin maker, lived in the 1700s, very well known, very well respected maker, and his instruments sell for between about $300,000 and upwards from $700,000. So, a real Storioni is a nice instrument. And, not a lot of people are going to believe that this violin is real, but still, you see all sorts of labels and instruments, and the real purpose that I found is usually people who are selling that are trying to get a little bit more money for an instrument. So the kind of trick is, if you can throw a bit of doubt about the origins of an instrument, then players might be okay to pay, instead of $5,000, maybe pay $11,000. And that's not a bad profit if you're buying an instrument for $5,000, just changing the label a little bit.
It's a good violin.
Some instruments also, this is a really good example. This is a Bohemian instrument, probably made in the late 1800s. And I can see from the workmanship that at some point someone stripped all the varnish back. They then put they kind of put a type of stain on it to kind of give it that older look. So just a dark stain. So you can see that underneath, it's got a bit of a reddish tinge. I'm just trying to see if I can find a spot where there's not much of a reddish tinge. Maybe just here. Can you just see just here? Still looks a bit red under this light. It's actually, if you look at it under other light, it actually just has a bit of a brownish sort of a look. But originally this instrument was actually a mass-produced Eastern German violin. It would have been made in Bohemia, so in which is now the Czech Republic. Maybe 1890s, something like that. So it's still, a nice and old instrument. And some of those instruments can have values between maybe, $2,500, even up to, to maybe $5,000 or $6,000 if they're nice instruments made in that area. And some of those Bohemian instruments are above $10,000, but this is not one of them. So this would have been one of the cheaper instruments. Basically, all the varnish got stripped back. It got, a stain. Someone stained it dark, and then they just put a bit of varnish in places to give it that really nice old look. But I'm fairly certain that the selling price of the instrument was well above what Bohemian instruments should be. And that's kind of where I worry a little bit that, that players get ripped off.
It's a good violin.
So I just wanted to, get your awareness that, this kind of stuff is happening. So have a look at this label here in a second. There you go. You get a fairly good look at the label, but you can also see that there's the crisscross pattern of print on there. I did a little bit of research online, and I found the exact label that they photocopied in one of the violin books. So it's just the exact copy.
I can Lorenzo Storioni. I'm going to copy this one.
Now Storioni, that's probably pushing it a bit far, but you know, there are some lesser known labels, lesser known makers, and they can really throw, you know, especially if you don't know what you're doing, can really throw doubt on an instrument. So this is just one example, but I've seen lots and lots of examples. Just here in Brisbane, we had a guy who used to sell, he might still be selling instruments, and they were mostly those East German mass-produced instruments. And at one point I saw a case of 4 instruments that a client showed me, and she just wanted to get a second opinion. And there were 4 instruments. They were all mass-produced German instruments that all had something done to the varnish. It was quite different styles, like one really brownish, the other one like a bit more red, one really yellowish, but they were all kind of fudged, and they were all mass-produced instruments, and they all had fake labels in them.
It's gonna look like the real thing. The real thing. And I'm gonna get thousands of dollars.
And that kind of makes me wonder. Now, I don't know if the violinist actually thought that, you know, he had better instruments and just didn't know any better, which is it's what I'm really hoping, is that, you know, that maybe when he bought the instruments in Eastern Europe, that someone told him it was something, so that it's not, you know, that he's not actually trying to get the better of some violinists, but still, you know, 4 instruments, 4 fake labels, all of those instruments priced between 2 and 3 times the actual value of the instrument. So you just got to be very careful when you're buying older instruments. You really do actually have to be careful that you really get it authenticated, that you get a second opinion, that you always work with someone who's trusted, someone who guarantees you know, what they're doing. Because, you know, in the end, and if someone loves an instrument and they've paid twice as much for it than it's worth, and they, you know, it's their instrument for the next 20, 30 years, and they absolutely love it, you know, I say, well, you know, maybe it's worth that to you, and that's fine. But I just want to really make sure that you know this kind of stuff can happen, and that, you know, none of my viewers kind of fall for that kind of thing.
I know some violinist is gonna fall for it for sure.
Anyway, if you like the video, hit the like button. If you can subscribe, makes a lot of sense, because then you always find out when I post the next video. To do that, you have to hit the little bell next to it. Anyway, keep making beautiful music, you know, love playing. Make sure you play in a relaxed way. I don't want anyone getting hurt. And practice enough, but not too much. Alright, see you guys. Bye.